France is entering a period of political uncertainty as Prime Minister Gabriel Attal resigns.
Two far-right groups have been cordoned off from power roles in the European Parliament as voting for top jobs began this Tuesday.
With 562 votes in her favour, Roberta Metsola has been re-elected by absolute majority as President of the European Parliament.
As football fans leave Berlin, how did Euro 2024 impact the German economy?
French President Emmanuel Macron accepted the resignation of his Prime Minister Gabriel Attal this Tuesday evening. However, Attal and his cabinet of ministers will remain in place during the next coming weeks, especially during the sensitive period of the upcoming Summer Olympics here in Paris. While the NFP, the left-wing coalition, the one that won the most seats during the French legislative elections, is still battling to come up with a name for the future Prime Minister. And France is really going into quite an unprecedented period known as a resigning government, and that means that it cannot be toppled by a no confidence vote from the rest of the MPs in the French National Assembly. That's the lower house of the parliament. And so this transition government headed by Gabriel Attal and his cabinet will only be able to take care of everyday matters. It will not be able to push any political or policy measures. And this could be okay for a couple of days or maybe a few weeks, but it could really pose a democratic issue if this takes longer than a couple of months, especially considering how complicated the negotiations have been to come up with a name for France's future prime minister. The NFP, the left-wing coalition, is composed of different parties, like, for example, the hard left France Unbowed Party, the Socialists, the Communists, and the Greens, and they really have been squabbling to nominate someone. On Monday evening, the Socialists, the Greens, and the Communists came up with a name from the civil society. Her name is Laurence Tubiana, and she is a activist as well as a diplomat, and she was one of the key actors in coming up and signing the Paris 2015 climate agreement. However, the France Unbowed LFI party rejected this nomination, claiming that she is too close to current French President Emmanuel Macron. Sofia Katzenkova reporting from Paris for Euronews.
Roberta Metsola has been re-elected by absolute majority as President of the European Parliament during the opening session of the new term. The Maltese politician, who had 562 votes in favour, will represent the institution for the next 2.5 years.
This last mandate we have learnt that the future is anything but predictable. But come what may, I will keep working with all of you to face the tests when they do come.
One by one, the MEPs cast their votes to the ballots placed in the corners of the hemicycle. Metsola, member of the EPP, has been able to build a consensus in a difficult time for the parliament, and the initial discrepancies over her candidacy, like her position on abortion, have been diluted. But she will have to focus on reconstructing the damage caused by the corruption scandal known as Qatargate. Metsola brought in some reforms, but for several MEPs, they are not enough.
There were issues that had to be tackled about transparency, the risk of interferences and of corruption, and there were steps taken by Metsola that we supported, others that still need to be taken and that we will need to push for in the new mandate, so that we are sure that we are protected from the risk of foreign interferences and the corruption risks that are everywhere in institutions, and the parliament needs to be fully defended from this risk.
She had only one opponent, the newly elected MEP from the left. Irene Montero, the former Spanish minister who ran symbolically, had 61 votes. After this election, the new European Parliament will start working with a first big task in mind, the election of the President of the European Commission on Thursday. The 10th term has 54% new MEPs, and for the first time, it has reduced the number of women elected to 39%. It has 8 political groups, one more than in the past 5 years.
Far-right candidates bidding to become Vice President of the European Parliament were voted down on Tuesday as part of centrist parties' coordinated efforts to build a firewall against the radical right wing. While the European Conservatives and Reformists did manage to secure 2 vice presidents, the 2 newly formed radical right-wing groupings were blocked. It means neither Patriots for Europe nor the Europe of Sovereign Nations will be represented in the European Parliament's Bureau.
The European Border and Coast Guard Agency.
Parties and political groups that basically want to destroy this parliament, that want to weaken the European Union, and that ran on platforms abolishing the EU, leaving the EU, whatever, should not hold responsibility in the European Union, should not hold responsibility here in the European Parliament. Well, if your political goal is to destroy this parliament, you should not be put in charge of managing this parliament, and that's the reason why we apply the cordon sanitaire.
However, the far right considered the cordon sanitaire strategy to be a breach of democracy.
Se il gruppo dei Patriotti è il terzo gruppo per dimensioni all'interno del Parlamento europeo, non l'ho deciso io, ma l'hanno deciso gli elettori. Per cui il fatto di andare contro la volontà degli europei, una volontà che è stata espressa democraticamente da milioni di elettori europei, penso che rappresenti una grossissima assunzione di responsabilità, oltre che una mancanza di rispetto.
With 14 vice presidents up for grabs, 11 were clinched in a first round of voting. 5 were given to the Socialists and Democrats, 3 to the European People's Party, 2 to Renew Europe and 1 to the Greens. Lake Prepsa, whose waters are shared by the 3 Balkan states, North Macedonia, Albania and Greece, is about to collapse. From year to year, the process of withdrawing the waters from this lake with unique biodiversity becomes more and more intense.
In the early 90s, the shore of the lake was here, where I'm standing. And now, as you can see, is almost 100 meters behind me.
In order to prevent this environmental disaster caused by climate change and human factors, non-governmental organizations from the 3 countries initiated the Forum for the Development of the Prepsa region. This is in order to appeal to state institutions of climate change that there is no more time to delay the implementation of political agreements that foresee mechanisms for saving this ecosystem.
Сака да направат апел и до владите, и до локалните власти да ги забрзаат напорите околу институционалната поврзаност, конкретна реализираност на акционите планови. Направени се премногу истражувања, премногу добри стратешки материјали, меѓутоа недостасува акција на терен и тоа народот најдобро го евидентира и очекува од 3 држави да сторат час поскоро хитни мерки.
At this forum, representatives of the Lake Constance Foundation presented their experience with the management of a unique ecosystem divided into 3 countries. The success of this foundation is based on the political agreement signed by Switzerland, Germany and Austria in the 60s, which has been successfully implemented. Lake Constance and Lake Prepsna are the only places in Europe whose waters are shared by 3 countries.
Social society cannot wait for some politicians in far-off capitals to have the mindset that it's important or whatever. So if the people here and the mayors, if they realize and they think it's necessary and it's important, then probably they can influence also politician makers on a higher level to really enforce that agreement.
Civil organizations from North Macedonia, Albania and Greece have committed to continue the mutual cooperation that did not exist in the past due to complicated geopolitical constellations in the Balkans. They hope to prevent the ecological catastrophe of this lake that is more than 1 million years old.
Arriving to rapturous applause, Donald Trump appeared at the Republican National Convention on Monday evening with a bandaged ear after a would-be assassin's bullet grazed him during a campaign rally in Butler, Pennsylvania on Saturday. At the conference, Trump officially secured the presidential nomination after running unopposed in the primaries. He nominated Senator J.D. Vance of Ohio as his running mate 20 minutes before the nomination via his Truth Social platform. Trump was widely applauded by the audience upon his entry and shook hands with a large number of supporters.
Europe's strongest economy, Germany, has been stuck in a recession since last year. However, the 2024 Euros have also enticed fans who spend. But have the profits outweighed the costs of hosting the games? Euronews asked international sports management professor Dr. Alexander Hodek.
Ehrlich gesagt, so als Wissenschaftler ist es oft mal überschätzt, was das ökonomisch so tatsächlich bringt, so ein Primäreffekt. Ne? Weil wenn man guckt, 2,7 Millionen Fans, die irgendwie die Bundesregierung erwartet hat, wenn die 2 Millionen davon übernachten und dann 1, 2 Nächte, dann ist das vielleicht 1% der Übernachtungen in ganz Deutschland. Ne? Das ist jetzt nicht so der Effekt, der alles sprengt. Aber über diesen ökonomischen Effekt hinaus gibt es halt auch noch Dinge, dass das mit den Menschen etwas macht, die Stimmung verändert, dass man vielleicht auch stolz ist, in Deutschland zu leben, ne? Dass das schön ist, wenn viele Nationen nach Deutschland kommen. Okay.
It's estimated that the tournament will cost the host cities a combined 260 million euros. But both the Hotel and Catering Association and the German Brewers Association said unpredictable thunderstorms combined with sweltering heat dampened opportunities for fans to spend.
Whilst the 10 host cities will only find out over the next couple of months if they've managed to break even, the main winners of the tournament so far have been the UEFA. The Football Association already expects to make a profit of over €1 billion from ticket sales, broadcasting rights and tax exemptions worth millions. Liv Stroud in Berlin for Euronews.